Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and this is Superhero Rewind.
Faster than a speeding bullet.
Slowpoke.
More powerful than a locomotive.
Sorry about that, Amtrak.
Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
No sweat.
What a man! Thank heaven for Superman!
We need him. We need him.
In the world of evil and doubt, we need him. We need him. In these times of misery and crimes, we need him. We need him.
Accusation.
Well, I said I'd review every American superhero film ever made, and now we get into the land of the obscure. I knew there was a Superman musical on Broadway in the 60s, and in fact I have the issue of Life magazine from 66 with an article about the production in my collection, but I never thought I'd have to review the show for Superhero Rewind because I didn't think there was ever a film version. I was sorely mistaken. The Broadway musical actually received great reviews and was nominated for a couple of Tonys, but it still couldn't drum up enough interest from patrons and it bombed, closing with only 129 performances. It turns out that in 1975, a TV movie was made to try and recoup some of the costs from the failed show. I doubt it helped much, considering it was shown only one time and at 11:30 at night. So depending on how you look at it, it's either a huge blessing or a huge curse that things like this managed to survive due to the nature of the internet. Someone in the world that night recorded this thing, and someone put it up on the internet, and that means I have to review it. Special thanks to Stitch99, one of our viewers, who brought this to my attention and requested I review it. This is a hard movie to review because it's one of those things you just kind of have to see for yourself to believe. Chances are most of you haven't seen this version, even if you knew about the musical itself. So I've included a link to the movie in the description if you want to try to make it through it. It's really silly and serves mostly just to make fun of its source material, so I'm obviously not going to take it seriously enough to do full character analyses or anything like that. This ain't Blade, Hulk, or Spider-Man 2 we're talking about. But I won't avoid spoilers or anything, so if you don't want anything ruined, do watch the movie yourself before going any further. The production itself is very minimalistic. The sets are very sketch comedy. They look like they're maybe from Saturday Night Live. There's a lot of cardboard and paper with no attempt at making it look like a movie. With the exception of the chapter titles on the screen, we're pretty much watching a stage production that somebody filmed rather than a movie version of the play. The backdrops are kind of cool. They look like they're taken right out of old comics. The good actors are really fun and seem to know what they're doing. They know they're in a farce and they really sell it. I'm especially talking about Leslie Ann Warren as Lois Lane and David Wayne as Dr. Sedgwick. And then there are the actors who either don't get the material, can't act, can't sing, or all three. Kenneth Mars plays Max Menken, and he sounds like he's on a blooper reel from a round of American Idol auditions.
Everything. Let me show you how to live.
But at least he's getting the tongue-in-cheek nature of the material. David Wilson's Superman is just abysmal. This is a movie that reduces all its characters to the most simplistic of stereotypes, and he still can't interpret the script. And his singing is really, really flat. We really shouldn't be dreading seeing the title character on screen. At first, I was bugged by the fact that Superman was so far in the background most of the time, and the story, such as it is, seemed to be focusing mostly on the villains. But once Superman takes center stage in the last half hour, I was kind of wishing he'd have succeeded in committing suicide. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about the plot for a second. The musical is mostly a bunch of songs with a very cookie-cutter plot just to hold everything together and make it resemble a story. But that's okay. This is a farce after all. It's not trying to be deep or meaningful. It's just having a good time making fun of superhero tropes. And I can get behind that as long as it's, actually funny. Keep in mind that I'm a big fan of Adam West's Batman. I can enjoy something that's genuinely funny or clever, even if it's a spoof or a farce of a character I really respect and care about. So here's the plot. 3 different bad guys hate Superman, and they all plot to get rid of him. The main villain, Dr. Sedgwick, has the most ludicrous motives ever, and that combined with how far David Wayne is willing to go to sell this ridiculousness makes him my favorite thing in the musical.
Now, you may ask, why do I want to obliterate Superman? In order to rule the world. You may ask, why do I want to rule the world? In order to obliterate Sweden.
He's a Nobel Prize loser 10 times over, and he wants to rule the world in order to get revenge on Sweden because some scientist there beat him to the prize. I kind of wondered why he didn't just try to take over Sweden, but that's probably too much thinking for this material. Then there's the mob, which is my second favorite thing in the movie. They're your stereotypical mobsters, and they want to rub out Superman because, of course, he makes it hard for criminals to be criminals.
Let me make one thing perfectly clear. There's somebody we gotta take out. Somebody's giving crime a very bad name.
Marlon Brando?
No, you dummy. I'm talking about the big time. I'm putting out a contract on Superman.
Besides Sedgwick, they get by far the funniest jokes and gags in the movie, and it's a shame they aren't featured in more of it. I honestly think you'll see the most clever parts, by the way, if you only watch the first half hour. I was surprised to learn they were changed to mobsters from Chinese crooks in the original Broadway version. That means that a lot of what I thought was the most clever writing in this was actually new material.
Fortunately, we are able to bring you some instant analysis of this terrible event. We have here in our studio the noted columnist and well-known expert on City Hall explosions, Max Menken. Well, Mr. Menken, what do you make of this City Hall explosion?
Well, it exploded. That's for certain.
And the third villain is Max, who hates Superman because he wants Lois Lane, and Lois is in love with Superman. He teams up with Sedgwick, and later, they team up with the mob. Lois' subplot revolves around her waiting for Superman and knowing he's unattainable. She's a completely shallow, ditzy airhead, but it really is pretty funny. Sometimes. Probably her best gag is not even knowing who Clark Kent is, even though he sits right across from her all day long.
Speak alone?
But we are alone.
No, I mean...
Huh? Oh, Clark, have you been there all along?
I'll let you speak in private. I got caught in the typewriter.
Later, after Sidney Carlton, who's played by Loretta Swift of MASH fame, dresses Clark better and makes him look more presentable, Lois instantly falls in love with him, deciding that what she's always wanted as a normal life is the traditional, stereotypical homemaker. And toward the end, she tells Superman she isn't in love with him anymore because she loves Clark. Sidney is basically just there to remind us how much Max is in love with himself, and in fact has an entire song about that. She's into Clark for a minute and then gives up on him when Lois gets interested. Although I don't think Loretta Swift is a great singer, she's at least not hard to listen to like Max and Superman, and she has one of the more clever musical numbers called You've Got Possibilities, where she tries to get Clark to be less of a stiff, and it has fun gags like her trying to take his glasses off.
That hat. Oh, no, I'm not Queen Victoria. That suit has to go still. You've got possibilities. Let us give it a try. I see possibilities. Maybe more than meets the eye.
You'll notice Superman himself is hardly in this plot so far. That's because he's barely important until the last half hour. Sedgwick finally puts his plan into motion and gets the people of Metropolis to hate Superman for not being there to stop City Hall from getting blown up. Then he starts moping around, and after Max and Sedgwick figure out he's Clark Kent, because a supercomputer told them so, Sedgwick convinces him he's a pathetic freak and no one needs him. He instantly buys into this and tries to commit suicide in the most bizarre scene in the movie, in which Superman takes a huge anchor and tries to drop himself to the bottom of the ocean.
Don't they know the strongest man can cry? I'm sorry I let you down, humanity.
It doesn't work because he has super lungs, so then all it takes is a couple of hippies to tell him how great and important he is, and then he gets his confidence back so he can save the day. He stops Sedgwick from killing Lois and taking over the world, and he beats up all the mob thugs. I actually kind of enjoyed this number, even though the song was a little lame, and like I said, this guy certainly doesn't have super singing abilities, because there's some fun choreography as Superman fights the mob a la Adam West and sings triumphantly. There's an explosion, but Superman gets everyone out just in time. But somehow the explosion conveniently causes both Max and Sedgwick to get amnesia, which apparently takes away their evil tendencies. That's a line in the script, I didn't make it up, and makes them forget that Clark is Superman. Stupid, but it's kind of funny, especially when Sedgwick, now a science writer at the Daily Planet, decides to try and win a Pulitzer, and you get the impression that he's still evil now, but he's going to be an evil writer instead of an evil mad scientist. What I really enjoyed about this was all the over-the-top satire about comics and superheroes. The supervillain plot is actually pretty clever because each villain wants to destroy Superman, but they all complain about how he's invulnerable.
I can't take this anymore. I can't stand this.
What?
All this invulnerability.
You think you got problems? I can't even pronounce it.
There are a lot of Superman stories where someone tries to kill Superman with a gun or something, and we, the audience, can't help but shake our heads and say, I mean, have you ever heard of Superman? You know he's bulletproof, right? Why are you even trying that? Even Superman Returns had a guy dumb enough to try to take Superman out with a machine gun. So Sedgwick decides the only way to get rid of him is to do psychological damage, to make him take himself out of the equation. Of course, this is done in an absurdly simplistic and extremely unrealistic way, but it's a cool idea. I like how these people are living in a world that's threatened so often and saved so often by Superman that everyone's become totally complacent about catastrophes.
Well, what's the urgent problem?
Metropolis is doomed.
Oh?
Yes, you know that new $20 million death ray that we installed at the university last year to put down student uprisings?
Gee, no, I don't.
And I really like the announcer who pops in between each chapter. There are 11 of them, and to me, it never gets old. I don't know if the announcer existed in any form in the original production, but this 1975 version seems to clearly be making fun of both announcers from old radio serials and of the announcer in the Adam West Batman series. The running gag is that whatever the chapter name is, it's going to spoil exactly what's about to happen.
Gotta stop that death ray before it turns the city into a graveyard.
Will Superman make it in time? Stay tuned for Chapter 3. Superman makes it.
And you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I think it's making fun of movie serials also. I think this thing would be a lot more fun of a production to make than it is to watch. I kept imagining a high school production of it, and in fact, I think several high schools are putting it on lately. I can't call it good, but I have to admit I was laughing a lot, especially in the first half hour. It's good at coming right out and asking you not to take it seriously, especially when it outlines Superman's origin at the beginning. The Kents find Superman's rocket, and it's labeled Innocent Babe on the outside.
Look, Mother. One innocent babe.
We've always wanted one of those.
Then, by golly, we'll adopt them.
With a cast of people who actually know how to sing and get campy, sarcastic humor, I think it has the potential to be a blast. And I'm assuming that's what the original production was, since it actually garnered good reviews. Still, the play itself has issues. It has way too many songs, in my opinion, and a lot of them are pretty poorly written. Apparently, this version is actually condensed from the original, and I'd love to know what was taken out. The only ones that really stood out for me are those I mentioned earlier. The Mob's number about how great America is.
It's a rich country full of all the trusting souls. It's a swell country without no gun controls.
And You've Got Possibilities.
Somewhere way down deep in you, there's light, no doubt.
I think it's trying to both make fun of musicals and make fun of Superman, and that's the thing that isn't really working for me. There are too many different kinds of musical numbers. It's all over the place. Maybe if it was a good musical, but a superhero spoof, it would have worked a lot better. I also wish more traditional Superman characters were given the spotlight. Perry White is here, but I wish he was a main character like he was in the 50s show and given his own musical number. And as much as I like Sedgwick, a singing Lex Luthor could have been pretty hilarious. Some people these days might think it isn't respectful enough to Superman as an icon, and I can see that. But honestly, I don't mind poking fun at things. There have been countless Star Trek and Star Wars spoofs, and it's usually the diehard fans that eat those up. This kind of thing has been done a lot with superheroes in comics also, though not very often in musicals. It's very clearly not trying to present itself as really Superman. It's not like it's Batman and Robin or anything. I'd love to see a really good live production of this. I'm going to give the TV version a 1.5 out of 4, mostly for flat singing, a really whiny, shy, and uninspired Superman, and a pretty slapped-together production.
You said you'd worked out a plan to destroy Superman.
Max. Good guy's plan. Bad guy's scheme.
What's your scheme?
Be prepared to be dazzled by its brilliance. Are you ready?
Am I ready?
Are you ready? The way to destroy Superman is to have Superman destroy himself.
You mean to say that Superman would destroy himself?
I mean to say that Superman would destroy himself.
Ah, I see. You mean that Superman would destroy himself?
I mean that Superman would destroy himself.